and welcome back to this week's episode of A Numbers Game with Ryan Girdusky. I appreciate everyone for listening in and checking it out. As always, by the way, I would like to ask you to sign up for my national popular newsletter, natpopnewsletter.com, to get a 30-day free subscription for all the data I am going to break down on this very special episode. So on Monday, Trump was sworn in as the 47th president of the United States. I'm sure you heard about it. Becoming the first president since Grover Cleveland to serve 2 non-consecutive terms. Immediately after being sworn in, he signed a flurry of executive orders and executive actions on everything from energy policy to DEI to immigration. He kind of flooded the finish line with enough stuff so that the media, Democrats, and the liberal nonprofits having to play catch up. This is enormously important because at some points, as there's so many executive orders coming at Democrats that they have to pick and choose which ones are they going to fight. I think that the most important one and the one that they are choosing to fight, and I guess the most quote unquote controversial executive order was on immigration to end birthright citizenship for illegal immigrants. The executive order states, and it's important that you understand the language of the executive order. The executive order states, the 14th Amendment has always excluded from birthright citizenship persons who were born in the United States, but not, quote, subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Consistent with this understanding, the Congress has further specified legislation that a person born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof is a national and citizen of the United States as Section 8-1401, generally mirroring the 14th Amendment. Among the categories of individuals born in the United States and not subject to the jurisdiction thereof, the privilege of United States citizenship does not automatically extend to the person born in the United States when, 1, that person's mother was unlawfully present in the country and the father was not a citizen or a lawful permanent resident at the time of the person's birth, or 2, when the person's mother's presence in the United States at the time of said person's birth was lawful but temporary, such as not limited to visiting the United States under a visa waiver program or a student visa or a tourist visa. That says that not only does an illegal alien, someone who is not lawfully present in the country, does not automatically get birthright citizenship, but student visas and tourist visas do not get birthright citizenship. This is critically important because an entire industry has been created overseas all over the world to sit there and to get citizenship for non-citizens. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry, as I'll describe further. Congressman Babin from Texas's 36th congressional district has already tried to codify the executive order, and he's submitted a bill. It's unlikely to pass, but it would be very important if it came to a vote and all the Republicans and hopefully a few Democrats support it. Now, several Democratic attorney generals have already sued the Trump administration over the executive order. They said that filing it is wrong because it denies citizenship. And in the court case submitted by the state of Illinois, it says that it's wrong in part because just too many children are born to from illegal alien parents. And that would be problematic. In 2022, this is the Democratic defense for birthright citizenship. This is what it says. Nationally, in 2022 alone, there were approximately 255,000 births of citizen children to non-citizen mothers without lawful status, quote, undocumented, and approximately 153,000 births to 2 undocumented parents. My guess is the 102,000 difference between having just an undocumented mother and having undocumented 2 parents is that the 100,000 were coming in alone and have a husband back in another nation that they were waiting for the baby to be born. Because once you're born, you get citizenship. You can then apply for a green card for your relatives. That is why it's an anchor baby. It is literally anchoring the entire family to the United States. But I want to think about the number for a second. This is the data point I want my listeners to remember. 255,000 births from non-citizen mothers is 1 in 13. 7.5% for all my math nerds out there. 1 in 13 children born in the United States have an illegal alien parent. That is getting a new Miami every 2 years. So 5 new Miamis full of children to illegal alien parents every single decade. They once again will get the right to vote when they turn 18 years old. They will get the right to sit there and fight for different political policies. They will get the right of American welfare state, everything from education to hospitalization to the prison system to the roads. I mean, everything that the American welfare system pays for, they will be entitled to. A new Miami every 2 years. Now, this has become an entire cottage industry. As I said, it's called birth tourism. There are overseas, there are agencies, and there are human smugglers who receive thousands, if not tens of thousands, upwards of $50,000 per woman to smuggle them in and 9 months pregnant, get them into a hospital and make sure they have a baby. There's high destination cities for this: New York City, Miami, Los Angeles, and the countries that are primarily not the only ones doing this, but the big countries where this is becoming cottage industry is Mexico, Nigeria, Russia, Turkey, South Korea, and China. China is a very big one. As of 2015, women in China were paying travel agencies and human smugglers $50,000 to create a package where they would get a hotel, a flight, get a tourist visa, and get to the United States in one way or another in order to have a baby here and get citizenship. Now think about that. And that year, in 2015, there were 10,000 Chinese nationals who gave birth. Now do the math. 10,000, $50,000 a person is $500 million from one country in 1 year. It's not bad cheddar when you think about it. We hope that this is not for any nefarious reasons. We hope that these are just people sitting there and saying, hey, look, those dumb Americans, they have a giant loophole in their immigration system that we can take advantage of and ultimately get into the U.S. and get citizenship. We hope. We really don't know. There's a especially large loophole in a territory called the North Mariana Islands, which is about 7,000 miles away from the lower 48 of the United States, and it's about 3,000 miles away from mainland China. So it's basically squarely in the middle of the Pacific. It was a very important area during World War II for any history buffs out there, but it's become an important place for birth tourism in the United States today. Because it's a territory of the United States, every child born on the island is automatically an American citizen, right? And the first child born in 2025, the child that made the newspapers as, ringing in the new year of just a few weeks ago, was from a 30-year-old tourist from Shanghai, China, is one of the thousands of children from mainland China who were born on the island in the last decade. That is because in 2009, President Obama waived the visa requirement for Chinese nationals and Russian nationals to come to the island. So they can come. In 2019, it was revoked for Russia, but not for China. So for a decade, Russians and Chinese were able to come to the North Mariana Islands without a visa, completely unrestricted, and have a child there. The number of children from China being born on the island increased from less than 10 per year to over 600. 95% of all foreign-born children on the island are Chinese nationals. The mothers are Chinese nationals, and there's no visa requirement. There's no flagging. There's one hospital. It's very much overwhelmed the system. There are now more Chinese nationals having children on the islands than there are natives from the North Mariana Islands. I don't know what they're called. North Marianans? Mariana, I don't know. But whatever that is, there are more Chinese nationals than there are North Marinarans. I think I'm saying marinara sauce. It's very problematic. But whatever that is, they are having more babies, Chinese nationals. It has become so bad that certain members of Congress have sat there and waved this towards the Biden administration for the last 4 years to no avail. President Trump's executive order closes that loophole. President Trump single-handedly is working to sit there and try and close that loophole along with all the others through ending birth tourism and birthright citizenship for illegal aliens, non-citizens, visa holders, tourists. It's critical. It's critical to national security. It's critical to who we are as a country. It's critical to the idea if you fundamentally believe American citizenship is important and it is the greatest benefit you could have in this world. And that is how it's being treated by the cartels. That is how it should be treated by our government. And unfortunately, especially since Barack Obama was president in 2009, it is not. Obviously, birth tourism is a huge issue for the entire country. It is especially a huge issue for the North Mariana Islands. And luckily, our guest this week has been one of the few members of Congress to be raising this issue time and time again. We're going to talk to Congressman Tom Tiffany of Wisconsin next. He's been in Congress since 2020, and he's been one of the lone voices in the wood. So let's get to Congressman Tom Tiffany about the situation there, about birth tourism, about Trump's executive order. We'll be right back after these messages. My guest this week is Congressman Tom Tiffany, who represents the Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District since 2020. He's been one of the few congressmen really raising the issue for the last few years. So thank you for being on, Congressman Tiffany.
Ryan, it's good to join you.
So the policy of opening up the North Mariana Islands to the Chinese without a visa seems to be strange because it's in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It's not like right next to China. They don't have a ton of, I guess, Chinese nationals who had lived there before we had taken it over, and they need to, go there to see family members. It's a very strange policy. And I've already done a little bit of background from my audience, but tell me, is it just Chinese nationals who are moving there who just want American citizenship, or has any research been done on whether or not these are Chinese politicians, political families, military families? Is any of that known, whether or not they're getting American citizenship?
Yeah, this is really an unusual situation, but it highlights, the many facets of our immigration system here in America. But this was set up as an Obama policy from 2009, where they said you don't have to get a visa if you're a Chinese national or you're a Russian national to be able to come on to the Mariana Islands. And I think it was 2019 when the loophole for the Russians was closed, but not for the Chinese. In answer to your question, do we know if there's military members or others? I don't know the answer to that. And I don't know if the State Department has really looked seriously into it. So I'm not sure.
It's so odd that Obama picked Russia and China, considering he was so hawkish on especially Russia, a little bit of China. But the warning signs for both countries are there. It's not Mongolia. It's not a country we never talk about.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. The national security concern should be off the charts, Ryan. When you think about, okay, here comes these Chinese nationals. They don't need a visa. They go to the Mariana Islands, and all of a sudden you have hundreds of babies being born in the native population, and yet they don't do anything to stop it. It's really odd.
I understand. The number went from 10 to 600 over the course of a few years, 10 Chinese nationals being born on the island to over 600. You've said during committee hearings, it's larger than the number of natives being born on the island. Let's say, so a woman from China, as was the case, the first baby born in 2025 was a Chinese national from Shanghai, a 30-year-old Chinese national from Shanghai. The baby gets citizenship, obviously, because she's having a baby in American territory. Can then the baby and her move to American mainland with no issues whatsoever?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm sure that under how the Biden administration has interpreted immigration policy, I believe the answer to that is yes. Now, this is what President Trump is going to put a stop to, is the birthright citizenship. And this is one of the best examples of it, where this child that was born, first one of 2025, if this would have been in place, this child would no longer have citizenship in America.
Right. Well, that would be extremely important to bring close this loophole. You've been in office since 2020, when you brought this up to the Biden administration officials, what did they say?
They ignored us.
Really?
They ignored us, and there really was no response. They were just like, we can do this, and go away. That's basically what they did. It's like all other facets of immigration policy. They just swept it under the rug and said, yeah, we can do this. We heard Mayorkas say it so many times. There's not a problem at the border. Don't worry. We've got it under control. They simply ignored us.
What did you have been unique in the Congress for raising awareness on this issue repeatedly. What do your Republican colleagues, are they aware, considering how hawkish we have become on China and how aware we are, especially since, I don't know, a little thing called COVID about China and how China acts and reacts towards things. Are your Republican colleagues aware of this? Because I didn't know about this till I listened to your committee hearings. And I know that committee hearings don't have the same audiences like the Super Bowl does. So are they aware?
Yeah, virtually no one knew about this before we brought it up a few years ago. But we are driving some awareness because, as you've said, Ryan, we brought it up a few times in different contexts on the Judiciary Committee. And now with the issue of birthright citizenship being front and center, and you can bet it's going to stay front and center, this issue, the example of the Mariana Islands, is going to get much more attention. And I think far more members of Congress are now going to know, okay, this is one of the examples of why birthright citizenship shouldn't be happening.
You're listening to It's a Numbers Game with Ryan Girdusky. We'll be right back after this message. What have the natives of this island, because the island only has one hospital and I believe one airport. This is a perfect microcosm of the country as a whole, where you see mass immigration overloading the infrastructure of a single place, especially a small place. I read some articles in some local newspapers, but there's a delegate obviously from the North Mariana Islands. Have they been concerned at all about the overwhelming number of people coming?
It might be part of the reason you haven't heard much about it, because the delegate was just changed in the last election. The previous one was a Democrat, and he defended it. Now it is a Republican, and she is saying, yes, there are real concerns here, and we need to do something about it. So the delegate was unhelpful in regards to this prior to January.
Now, there is one of your colleagues from Texas has offered a bill to make the end of birthright citizenship in legislation for illegal immigrants, and trying to get some real hard legislation, regardless of what the Supreme Court rules. I guess the Supreme Court rules against Trump doesn't really matter. Trying to get this in law so that way, if the next president comes and waives the next Democratic president comes and waives the birthright citizenship rule that Trump's trying to put in, there will actually be some teeth to it. What is the reaction from the your colleagues about Trump's executive order? Because when it comes to immigration, unlike some other issues, Republicans really run the gamut on policy. You have some very, very pro-amnesty Republicans and some other Republicans who want to lock down the border.
We're going to find out because Representative Babin just introduced that as we're speaking here, Ryan. He just introduced it this morning. I was at the press conference, gave a presentation. And so we are trying to put it in statute. What you're referencing, okay, this lasts for 4 years through the Trump administration. If we want this to be enduring, we need to get it in statute. And hopefully we are going to be able to do that. But I think this is going to be challenged in the courts. And I think the left is taking a real risk here, because when you read the language, and I don't know if you have or not, Ryan, if you go back and look at the text from 1868, when this was passed as a constitutional amendment, it was clearly a post-slavery constitutional amendment that was put in place. And they were very clear in the language that they said, this does not apply to foreigners. That's the term they used at the time. And I don't know how you could have a more apt description of a foreigner than somebody that's a citizen outside the United States of America. And I think this Supreme Court, unless Roberts goes all crazy on this, I don't see how the Supreme Court could rule any other way than that birthright citizenship is a figment of the left's imagination and the progressive courts of the last 5 decades.
Well, I mean, it's not even just foreigners. Native Americans didn't qualify in the original interpretation of the 14th Amendment. But then again, the 14th Amendment has become this, it's become this ever-loving gobstopper from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory for the left of these are every kind of policy you want. Well, it's in the 14th Amendment. You just have to keep looking it up until you find it. The interesting thing about the executive or about for the executive order is that I read in 2015, China alone, the industry of birth tourism in just China was a $500 million a year industry. Among the world, and that was in 2015, the whole world, especially big countries that send a lot of 9-month pregnant women to the United States, Turkey, Brazil, Russia, China, obviously Mexico. It must be a multi-billion-dollar semi-human smuggling enterprise. And once again, we don't know. I mean, El Chapo's children were born in the United States. I believe I might be mistaken on that, but I'm pretty sure that American citizenship has been offered to definitely the children of foreign leaders, terrorist organization, people working in terrorist organizations. It's amazing that it's taken to this point for anyone to sit there and wave and have a moment of clarity for the Trump administration about this, and that there's still pushback. At least on a national security aspect, which is one of the few areas that there's some decent bipartisanship.
Don't you think, Ryan, that it highlights how things have to get so bad sometimes in order for there to be reform? And I think that's what's happened here. And people are finding out the many facets of illegal immigration. And it took a president as strong as Donald Trump, as committed as Donald Trump, to take action on something like this. Everybody would run in fear. Donald Trump does not run in fear from the left. I mean, he's proven that since he came down the escalator back in 2015. And it's taken somebody like him to take on these issues that have been turned on their head over the decades. As we talked about, this was passed in 1868. It did not contemplate having people claiming birthright citizenship just because you had a child in America. But that's how it's been turned on its head here in the 20th century. And it's finally gotten so bad that people are willing to take action. I would make one other point here. I said 4 years ago, I think it was in a judiciary hearing, that what has been going on through the Biden years is the largest human trafficking operation since slavery. And I was roundly chastised for saying that. Wouldn't you agree that that's the truth?
100%. I think that what is coming into question really is that the left wants us to rethink the purpose of nationhood. Like, why are we a country? What makes us a country? If we're just an idea, right? If America's just an idea, like the left likes to sit there and say, well, we can just email that idea around the world and then they could just make it their own country. No, we are an immensely prosperous place, an immensely safe place if you look at like the world as large, because of the people who live here. And the right of citizenship is the right to be an American citizen is the biggest privilege on this earth, in my opinion. So to give it away so easily and to allow human traffickers, as you said, to just, create a multi-billion-dollar industry out of it, a black market industry, and to say nothing of it because it helps, I think, feed the left's bottom line on challenging the idea of nationhood is just so damning, in my opinion, and so corrosive to their thought process.
Yeah, and so I think your characterization is accurate that, I mean, they're giving away citizenship cheaply, right? It's like penny candy. And the Mariana Islands are a really good example of, okay, we're just going to give these away. We're going to make a visa change administratively in 2009. And, this is one of the ramifications. Okay, no problem. Chinese nationals are coming in. Oh, the Chinese communist government might be our adversary. We really don't care. And if you want to know who understands the value of American citizenship, it's those cartels, right?
Yeah.
When they charge $5,000, $10,000, we've heard as high as $50,000 to some Chinese nationals coming across the Mexican border that they charge them. They know how much it's worth, don't they?
Right. And, Congressman, when I'm from New York City my whole life, at the Roosevelt Hotel where they were having all the migrants, there was a ward for pregnant women. There was a huge thing. There was an increase in, I read this from the CDC a month or two ago. There was a 50% increase in the number of Venezuelan nationals having children in America from 2023 to 2024 when President Biden was flying them in on the One app. They had this huge amount because they sat there and said, this is our chance. It is oftentimes, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. It is oftentimes the fact that foreign nationals and foreign cartels understand the laws better than Americans do. And I would honestly venture to bet better than some members of Congress do. Present company excluded, Congressman Tiffany.
No. I wouldn't be surprised. El Chapo's kids, who are probably American citizens,
They are. I looked it up while we were talking. They were born in Los Angeles, and then they returned to Mexico. So yes, they got the citizenship vis-a-vis birthright citizenship for non-citizens. And people know status here.
El Chapo may be a bad guy, but he ain't dumb, is he?
Right. And according to the law that we have on the books, think of it like this to the listeners. El Chapo's children were born in Los Angeles, got American citizenship. They had no visa status to be here. They can, if he ever gets out of jail, sponsor him for citizenship, and he can never be deported. Think about how ludicrous that hole in that system is. What is the defense from the left? Is it just that I think you said beforehand that Trump was the only one willing to take this on. The fear of being called a racist in America amongst Republicans is palpable, or was previous to Donald Trump. I think that fear is gone because they accuse him of being everything under the sun for 10 years now. What is the defense for the left? I mean, in the court case, in the court documents that I think it was Illinois put out, the one of the lawsuits, they said you can't do this because there's just too many children being born to non-citizens. It's 1 in 13, 250,000 a year. On the other side of the aisle, do you think there's any of your Democratic colleagues who see this as problematic?
I think you see, how many people voted for the Laken-Riley Act. There's probably about 50, something like that voted for the Laken-Riley Act on the Democrat side. They at least understand that. They at least understand there's political peril, right? That their next election has become tougher if they don't vote for this. They understand at a minimum that. So I think there are some people that on the Democrat side, but man, most of them, this is a plank. This is a plank in their
party platform.
Yeah, in the party platform. I mean, this is a plank in the platform, much like transgenderism and other stuff like that. It is a plank in the platform at this point, and if you don't adhere to it, we are going to come and get you. And I hope, honestly, for the sake of the country, I wish they would change their ways. But for the sake of us Republicans winning elections, don't change your ways, and we'll go that way. And by the way, all people got to watch is you saw the new ranking member on Judiciary, Jamie Raskin. I mean, you couldn't get anybody more radical than Jamie Raskin to chair the Judiciary Committee, where they forced Jerry Nadler out. And I mean, that's a clear message that they are going to stay the course on this issue, that people should come in. We're erasing borders. They believe in globalism. I mean, that's who they are at this point.
Well, I mean, it's really ironic when you say Nadler as almost like a centrist thoughtful person. That shows how far Congress has really moved. What can people do? What can constituents do to raise awareness about this? There is a bill. What's the name of the bill? They can call their congressman to sit there and co-sponsor it. It would be great if they had 100% of the Republican members. And there's 13 Democrats in Republican seats. I talked about in my first episode of the podcast. What could they do to kind of galvanize Congress to really start moving on this issue?
It's the Birthright Citizenship Act. So yes, they should contact their congressional representatives and tell them, hey, you need to sign on to this. And but more broadly, we're going to probably take up a version of H.R. 2, which you remember from last session, best secure the border bill that ever passed through a House of Congress, died in the Senate. We're going to have a version of that. People have to stay after us. As you said earlier, there's people that get a little squeamish on this issue.
I can name names if you want me to.
Yeah. That's up to you. They need to stay after us in regards to this. November 5th, we elected Donald Trump and all the rest. We got majorities, thin majorities, but people have to stay after us. The fight is not over. And you got to stay after us, Republicans, to follow through on what you expected us to do when you voted on November 5th.
Now, Congressman, you have been a leader on this issue. Where can people go to follow your information, get, I guess, newsletters from you, emails from you guys, or just follow you on social media? If they want to keep hearing about this issue and honestly any border security issue, which you've been extremely good on.
Yeah, just go to @Rep Tiffany. I got a great communications team that's always putting out good stuff, as you see. And just go to @Rep Tiffany, Tiffany, and you'll find us there. By the way, we also put out a weekly newsletter, and it is one of the best that's out here in Congress. It's called the Tiffany Telegram. Comes out every Friday in your email inbox. It's hard-hitting. It's substantive. We don't just talk about, okay, it's maple syrup season in northern Wisconsin. Though
is it maple syrup season in Wisconsin? I don't know. Is that a real thing?
No, we had 25 below. We got to get...
Oh, okay. We're a few months now.
We're a few months away from that, Ryan, but we really do put substantive stuff in that Tiffany Telegram every week.
Where can they go for that?
Go to my congressional website, and you'll see the sign-up button for it.
Great. Thank you for leading on this issue. Thank you for talking about this issue, and thank you for being on this podcast.
Great to join you, Ryan.
Thank you for listening. This week and every week, you can check out my podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please like and subscribe, and tune in next week.